Okay, welcome to this SDG Live session in Lisbon. I'm really happy to introduce to you Caroline McGregor from SEforALL. We'll be presenting together with Charda Müller and myself, Annemarije Kooijman from the Energia program. Two exciting new products that will be launched this week. So if we go to the next slide. Yeah, so we're working as Energia and SEforALL. We're interested in gender and energy and in the nexus between those. And we're presenting a report called Levers of Change, which looks at global trends and how these global trends influence gender equality and social inclusion in access to sustainable energy. Another product that's recently come out is a report, Opening Doors, which maps stakeholders, and there's a very nice interactive website, which Charda will introduce later. Right, so if you go to the next slide. The Levers of Change. The full title is How Global Trends Impact Gender Equality and Social Inclusion. And why did we want to do this? Well, of course, we know that reaching women and social benefits requires a targeted approach. That energy supply in itself is not enough. This is something we know. What we don't know is what are all the trends going on, these big global trends, and how do they influence these access and the benefits, or are they even risks? They could also form opportunities. So what we did is we made a list of global trends that are occurring, that we know of, that we think might be very important in influencing both access issues and social benefits. And we're looking for those and detailing both the trends, the implications, and policy advice. The idea is that this would inform decision makers, both in policy and in practice, for example, businesses working on energy access, to identify opportunities and challenges for the future, to position their current work in a future perspective. And also from Energia's perspective, we want to really feed this into our own work on women's economic empowerment, our work on international advocacy, and for the research program, we have a large research program looking at energy and gender issues, and positioning those findings into a time perspective. Like, what are we finding now, and how is this likely to change in the future? Right, so if we go to the trends that we identified. Go to the next slide. Thanks. In an active interactive session with a steering committee, there are a number of trends were identified. They are decentralization, affordability, mobile payments, entrepreneurship, urbanization, and humanitarian settings. All of these could form levers of change to change the context, which can be positive or negative for energy access. And in this presentation, we're just going to highlight a few of these trends and the implications, and give you an idea of what kind of information you can find in the report. And we hope you'll be able to read the full report later on. Right, what we're doing is we're identifying these implications for gender equality, pulling out messages, and also there are country studies. And Caroline's going to say something more about those country studies later on. Right. If we can go to the first trend, we'll go to the next slide. An example trend. In this presentation, I'm clustering a few trends. But an example is decentralization that's ongoing, and affordability is increasing. These are major trends driven by technology changes. Technology changes in terms of costs of renewable energies reducing at a pace that was unforeseen, and that will lead to different types of decisions being made in the future. We're already seeing it now. The options for decentralization are increasing because of the price of renewable energy supply. What's also increasing or improving is the costs of appliances, energy efficient appliances such as lighting. So this really changes the opportunities, it changes the benefits. And what we're seeing is that of those, that it really influences the opportunities because for electricity access to in sub-Saharan Africa, 3/4 of those will be reached through off-grid and mini-grid. These are the projections that are there. And the trend and the implications are strong for gender, not only because it increases the speed of access, but also because having small targeted projects increases the opportunities to involve women in a more specific, locally sensitive way. Involving women in the energy supply chain and involving women in defining their demand so that the demand can be met. And this is not the same in every country. Demands regarding productive uses or demands regarding needs for cooking and for mechanized functions in agriculture or small-scale industry. It's just different in every case, and having a gendered approach is can be very strong, especially in a small-scale setting. Then the next trend. Oh, sorry, I made a separate choice. So the trends are on renewable price reduction, off-grid, mini-grid, energy-efficient appliances. Mobile communication technology also plays a role in accelerating this trend. Having mobile communication technology actually allows payments in off-grid or remote situations in a way that improves the business case to reach these remote communities and also increases the demand for energy services. Consumer financing is also an important trend. Lots of innovations are ongoing to increase the affordability, not only from the supply side, but also improving the access to finance so that demand can be met. Okay, next. Yeah, so the implications for social inclusion are opportunities to adapt to demand and opportunities for women involvement. Having women involved in the supply chain can also increase the benefits for women and also for access in general. Making use of the capacities, of making use of the knowledge of women about their local communities and about the demand can really improve the quality of access as well. So in conclusion, this trend indicates that affordability and use of energy services is not only about technology. You need to link to other sectors, other actors outside of the energy sector to really have the impacts and reach the last mile. So it's also about consumer finance and respecting gender relations. Go to next. Right, the next trend. As an example, I chose to highlight urbanization. With the increasing urban population, expected by 2030 that 60% of the global population will live in cities, the number of people living in informal areas not having access to formal energy access will really influence the living conditions and people's opportunities to create a living and create their own livelihoods. What's especially pressing is air quality issues, of course. If people are not able to access formal connections for gas or for electricity, the air quality will go down, it won't be approved, and this is a very, very serious issue, especially in densely populated areas. The issue is that access can only be informal if people don't have a formal housing in many cases. So changing regulations, changing the requirements to access clean energy, high quality energy, doesn't need to be related to the formality of the housing. So that's an important point. However, getting people to switch from free energy access or unpaid connections to paid connections will require quite some effort. What we especially are seeing is that reliability will be the main argument. having reliable energy access instead of unreliable energy access, reducing dependency. Those will be the types of arguments, but there will be a lot of social work rather than only technical work ongoing. In all, increasing the reliability and accepting that informal settlements will remain for the time to come, and then still trying to improve the access to clean energy for those in informal settlements. Right, now I pass on to Caroline for highlighting another trend and to the final remarks. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Annemarije. Is that better? I know it's so hard to hear. I'm going to really yell into the microphone. All right, so Annemarije did a great job of walking us sort of through deep dives on a couple of the 6 trends. I thought I'd step back and give a little bit of the policy view. That's my job here. So we started from the thesis that SDG 7 and SDG 5 are related. That seems logical. But our thesis is that achieving one will help achieve the other. They're interrelated in that respect. But we wanted to dig a little bit more deeply into those questions and sort of the how, and then also recognize that we live in a fast-changing, complex world where things rapidly develop. These are the trends. So understanding what headwinds and what tailwinds those trends present for gender equality and social inclusion in the context of energy access is really important information to have. I can say personally I learned a lot from this report in terms of what questions to ask about differentiated, the thesis, the starting point here is that energy use is gendered. Men and women consume energy differently, and they contribute to the energy sector differently. Then we need to really understand that if we want to lift it all up and true to this conference's theme of leave no one behind. Asking the question of how is access different for male-headed households versus female-headed households? This report does a great job of really pulling out some of those research threads. On a macro level, entrepreneurship is increasing, women's business ownership is on the rise broadly, but that's not true in every country. In some countries, I think in Ghana you see like 42% of business owners are women, but not too far away in Ethiopia, that number is only 10%. And the same plays out in Asia, where in Vietnam, 31% of businesses are owned by women, but in India, it's only 11%. So what are the kind of institutional, the structural sort of uphill battles that need to be climbed, and how can we as gender and energy advocates sort of help lower those barriers? So this report is very insightful in that respect. Maybe let's tackle the next slide here. That's what, okay, we can do that one. So Annemarije mentioned, but I'll go through this a little more closely, that there are 5 case studies in the report. We really, we asked the author, who unfortunately couldn't be with us today, to dig into these multiple elements for those 5 countries. So you have 2 in Africa, 2 in Asia, and then Haiti, of course, in the Caribbean. And pulling out the data that's available. And it's for those of us who work in the gender space, we know that you work with the data you have, not the data that you want, because the data you want is not there yet. But part of our role that we see is pointing the way towards the data that hopefully we can all come together and help to build out, and in service to the movement, in service to the community and our success going forward. I will note that the People-Centered Accelerator, which is something that SEforALL launched last November, it's quite new. It's also very exciting. We have a number of work streams that build on a lot of the information that this report draws out. That was always the intention, that this report would inform the People-Centered Accelerator going forward, so we're very excited about that. We're going to do a lot of work planning on Friday, and actually I think tonight there's a reception, and we're inviting everyone to come find us in the front right corner of the patio. If you've been out that way, we'll just try to have an informal meeting of the minds. And there are also two 2 marketplace stalls for the people-centered accelerator upstairs. Last but not least, is this the last? One more? Good, call to action. So we hope to inspire policymakers to ensure that women's and men's needs and contributions are addressed by solutions in this space. This report is just a preliminary step, but if we don't want to leave anyone behind, leave no one behind, but specifically leave no women behind because they're the more likely, right? They're the majority of those living in extreme poverty. We really have to take conscious efforts. So it's just an invitation. The call to action is an invitation to join us in pursuing further research and further work in this space. So with that, I will hand over to Charda, who will say a little bit more.
Tomorrow. Okay. Yeah, no, this one. Tomorrow, one of the specific sessions, one of the trends will be highlighted in a session at 11:45. This is a trend on humanitarian settings. So we'll have a special panel session. Unfortunately, we said Rebecca Pearl can't be with us, but we have a wonderful panel and we'll get some details of the nitty-gritty of one of the trends that we mentioned today.
Okay, thank you, Caroline and Annemarije. I will just add a little bit, not on this socioeconomic trend study, but on another very exciting thing that we did together, SEforALL and Energia. We launched last week a new website called Faces of Energy, and that is basically an interactive website of the mapping of who's doing what in the space of gender and energy. I just wanted to present to you a few slides so you can see what it looks like. Well, this is like the homepage. You can explore the map, and that will lead you right into the website. But you can also download the report. And downstairs, you see it has download the report. We decided to create this website based on a data collection that was done SEforALL with the Wallace Foundation. They were mapping who is doing what, which organizations are active in which sector and with which programs in the space of energy, gender equality and social inclusion. This report was so rich in data. You can go to the second slide. The report is called Opening Doors, and here you can see all the initiatives, the distribution of the initiatives, and the interviews and the countries that were involved. This is just a little figure that you can find in the report itself, which can be downloaded from the website. So all of these data, all these figures were so interesting that we said, well, we have to work together to make it online available. And that's how we got the interactive website, Faces of Energy. If you can go. So when you get into the website, you have this image first. You can select per country, you can select per region, and then if you want also per theme, per topic, like empowering women, clean energy transition. So if you select a specific country, then you will get all the information on that country on the right-hand side. You can go. You can see it there. How it, let me just walk a little bit. On the top side of the bar, you will have information, general information on the situation of energy access in that country. That is information pulled from the global tracking framework. And below that, you have programs, the organizations. And if you click on them, you will have more information on that one. If we go to the second slide. Yeah, like here, for example, I think this is the example of Kenya that I took. So there you see all the organizations, all the programs working on gender and on gender and energy. If you click on the pluses, you get more details about it. We cannot show it to you at this very moment because of the internet connection, but the website is www.facesofenergy.org, and you can also access it through our website. If you want to play with it and just look around, you're more than welcome to. It runs at the marketplace. Booth 1, the people-centered accelerator. It's online all of the time. So I invite you all to just go there, play around with it, submit your data, give us feedback on how useful it is, what you will be doing there. We thought it's very useful for policymakers, for practitioners, for even investors to see, well, what programs are already there, how can we complement each other, where are the gaps that we still need actions to build actions, and so on and so forth. So welcome to take a look at the website.
Thank you. For those of you who are interested, I already said these are the websites to go to. Also tomorrow there's a site, and for the specific on the report, unfortunately because the author can't be with us today, we will be organizing a webinar. So if you want more details, you can have join us, give us your card, so we'll make sure that we invite you to the webinar.